We would all please stand, and we'll be led in prayer by Alderwoman Stacy Gould.
Almighty God, we ask for your blessing upon the members of this council as we assemble here in this chamber to conduct the ongoing business of our city. With your guidance, we will strive to ensure that all our decisions are for the common good, and your inspiration will instill respect, compassion, and thoughtfulness in all our deliberations. Give us the strength and wisdom to lead by example as the people's representatives, and that peace and harmony will mark all our proceedings and keep us faithful to the trust placed in us by the citizens of your community. Amen.
Amen. Alderman Nash, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, Alderwoman Joan Philbrick would like a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let you all know that several weeks ago I fell and fractured my femur. I'm going to be out of commission for a while. I'll be residing at the Norwich Town Rehab. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can contact me there. I do not have access to my cell phone or my computer there. But I wanted you to know that although I am uncomfortable, I feel that I have an obligation to those of you who voted for me, and I need to be at these meetings and move our city forward. So I thank you to those of you who arranged for my transportation here tonight, and I hope that I won't, I hope that I can go the distance tonight. I might ask Peter for a moment or two if I need to readjust my position and that kind of stuff. But I thank you all for your support, and I hope that we can continue to meet the needs of the departments and the city as a whole. It's going to be difficult, but we're prepared. We each have our own little issues medically this evening, but we'll move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to ask for a motion for the adoption of the minutes, April 2nd, 12th, and 16th, 2018. Alderwoman Stacy Gould, second by President Pro Tem Alderman Nash. Is there discussion? Concerns? All those in favor of the minutes? It's unanimous. Petitions, please.
Letter of resignation from Hector Belageron from the Board of Commissioners of the Norwich Housing Authority.
Motion to accept the letter, please. Alderman Stacy Gould, second Alderman Browning. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderman DeLucia.
Mr. Mayor, I would just like to say that I've known Mr. Belageron, I should say, he's known me for a very long time, and he has served the city very well in a number of capacities, including the City Council, and I would just like to publicly thank him for all of his tireless effort, and I'm sure just innumerable number of hours that he has given freely to the city and to this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Public hearing. An ordinance amending Section 7-132.2 and 7-131.4 small c of Article V1 of the Code of Ordinance regarding the size of replenishment of the general fund unrestricted fund balance. To be withdrawn.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a recommendation that we withdraw this at this time.
Is there a second withdrawal? Alderwoman Stacy Gould. All those in favor of the withdrawal? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager's report, please.
Thank you. This is the City Manager's report for May 7, 2018. Per the Council's resolution of April 16th, I have been working with Josh Portier and department heads to reduce the budget with several scenarios ranging from 1% to 5% cuts and the effects to the city, which was sent to you on Friday, April 27th. I attended the Southeast Council of Governments and SEAT monthly meetings. I had my monthly update with Bob Mills of NCDC and also attended their board meeting. I was invited to be on the Stu Breyer Show on WICH on April 19th. I met with Charlie Whitty from the Norwich Housing Authority, who advised me of his upcoming retirement. Charlie has been the executive director of the Housing Authority for the past 18 years and will be retiring in June. In addition to his successful private law practice, he also served several years in city administration, including the title of Norwich City Manager. I and we wish him well and thank him for his years of service. I attended the 40th Annual Volunteer Recognition Celebration at the Rose City Senior Center. A delicious, and it was delicious, breakfast was served to thank the approximately 140 volunteers at the center. Thank you for those that volunteer. The city appreciates your service. A meeting was held for all the fire chiefs to discuss several items, including the fire truck bond. The meetings will now be held on a monthly basis per discussions with the chief. Chief Daly invited me to visit police dispatch in operations, and I reviewed their communications system. The city was notified by Governor Malloy's office that his administration nominated 3 census tracts in Norwich for the Federal Opportunity Zone program. 72 zones were selected in 27 municipalities for this program that provides federal tax incentives for investors. The city submitted the applications in March. The Redevelopment Agency held a public forum on April 23rd to discuss the city's brownfield sites that could be targeted for environmental assessments. A presentation was given by Ty and Bond, the city's consulting firm, to advise the RDA on the best way to use the $384,000 federal EPA grant for development of brownfield sites. The city will be participating in the Mohegan Tribe for Operation Orange. The Connecticut Sun will be hosting the opening game of its 16th season with the WNBA at the Mohegan Sun Arena on May 20th, and they have asked several key landmarks around the state to be lit up in orange on the evening of May 19th. My assistant, Jackie Barbaroso, has been working with John Johnson, Facilities and Grounds Manager, to ensure that the Norwich City Hall will be illuminated with orange lighting that evening. Very low-cost spotlights, so it's not going to be too elaborate, but it should work. She has referred the Mohegans' request to the Greater Norwich Chamber of Commerce and to NCDC to have downtown businesses light up the windows if possible. We wish them the best of luck in their 17th season. Finally, the mayor has asked me to express his thanks on behalf of the city of Norwich to those who joined him on Saturday, May 5th for the downtown Norwich cleanup. The event was organized by Norwich Community Development in conjunction with Last Green Valley. Thank you to the staff of NCDC, employees of Eastern Savings Bank, employees and clients of the ARC of Southeastern Connecticut, Norwich Public Works Director Ryan Thompson and his staff, Bill Kenny, Norwich Ambassador of Goodwill, and members of the public that participated in the cleanup. Thank you for participating in making downtown cleaner. And that is my report for this evening.
Before I ask for comment or questions, I'd also like to add on that the city manager and I, along with the deputy commissioner at DECD, did in fact tour Panema Mills today, as well as Uncas Sleep. They came down to see the progress that's being made. As you recall, the state has provided significant contributions in the way of grants to move those projects forward, and it was a very nice trip that we took this afternoon. I also want to thank Deanna Rhodes, our city planner, who was there with us as well. It was a nice opportunity to show off what's going on here. Are there questions of the city manager's report? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
at this point, I'd like to put forward a motion to request a suspension of the rules.
You have the floor.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to add a resolution to tonight's agenda proposing goals and possible amendments, plural, to the operating and capital budgets, making it item number, or resolution number 16 on our agenda. I have copies for the dais and for the public.
Is there a second? Alderman Nash, second. Is there discussion on the motion to suspend our rules? That's the first motion. Seeing none, all those in favor of suspension? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
No. Just for the public record, Alderman DeLucia, it was your intent to move for suspension of the rules and to add the resolution in one vote, correct?
I'm sorry, could you ask that again, Mr. Mayor?
Yes. It was your intent for the record that it was to move for suspension of the rules and to add the resolution in one vote.
Yes, it is, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We will treat it as such. Pardon? Yeah, okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comment on resolutions. And Joanne Martin is the first person signed up.
Joanne Martin, 46 Clifton Place. Many of the cuts in the budget are not sustainable and will just result in departments going over budget. For example, cutting replacement costs for police and fire may reduce spending on paper, but these are necessary services, and the result will just be more overtime to cover those services. Not to mention the additional hours that will be needed for police that will now be expected to cover for other lost funding, such as animal control and crossing guards. Less bodies is not the answer. We need an overall plan for this city, not just slash and burn strategies that don't actually cut costs in the long term, never solving the underlying problem of making services more efficient. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Linda Fedoro, if I pronounced that correctly.
Linda Theodorou, 37 Taftville Ockham Road in Norwich. Examining the proposed reductions in spending, I see short-term savings and long-term negative impacts. Cutting services is not the only way to save money. Not only are you proposing cutting services to residents, you are proposing cutting the very things that will be needed to get us out of this hole. Instead of making Norwich an unattractive place to live or run a business, we need to look at reducing costs through consolidation and elimination of redundancies. I recently read that Ledyard was saving both the town and its employees money by switching from self-funding to joining the state's Partnership Plan 2.0 for health insurance. We could also consider sharing resources and costs with other towns, such as animal control or fire services. We have fire departments at the edges of our town, which are near the fire departments of the towns next to them. We have redundant finance, HR, and payroll departments in the city. I am not trying to suggest that I have all of the answers or that any of these things are even feasible, but I do think there needs to be a different approach to saving money. Please try thinking more creatively and long-term rather than short-term and short-sighted. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Scandalera.
The city clerk is going to hand out a packet that I put together for you to ensure that everyone has the information that I'm speaking to, because it's somewhat technical. My name is Ken Scandariato. I'm the fire chief and marshal and emergency management director for the city of Norwich, and I live in Norwich town. I am here with the permission of the city manager. I'm here to speak against imposing a 5% reduction in the Norwich Fire Department that would affect the fire marshal's office. This single reduction represents a 33% reduction in fire prevention, plans review, public education in schools, code inspection and enforcement, and arson investigation. And I have provided the law so that you can see it, and we're all on the same page. In the Connecticut State Fire Safety Code, Section 29-305, Section 107C, it tells us that each local fire marshal, the state fire marshal and their respective designees shall conduct inspections as prescribed in Section 29-305 of the general statutes of buildings and facilities regulated by the state of Connecticut within their jurisdictions. Each local fire marshal, the state marshal, and their respective designees may conduct inspections of structures and additions, and during the course of renovations or alterations or modernizations for some purpose of satisfying themselves that all work is in accordance with the approved plans, specifications, and this code. The minimum requirements for frequency of inspection as prescribed in 29-305 are as follows. Annual inspections for occupancy classifications, residential A1, 2, E, and H1, and I1, every 2 years. In addition to the annual occupancy classifications of A3, H2, I2, I3, B, medical, and college, inspections every 3 years. B, H3, M, S1, A4, A5, and it goes on. We do not meet that statutory requirement now. I spoke at great length during the recent budget hearing to inform this council of the peril we face from the shortfall of adequate staffing in the fire marshal's office. I am at a loss after the discussion how this could even be remotely considered, as I have repeatedly stated that the last 2 years' reductions have cut into critical public safety services that we must not sacrifice. It is not, as some would suggest, acceptable to cut across the board in this case. This is an area of public safety that has already been cut far too deeply and cannot sustain any further reductions without knowingly placing people at foreseeable and substantial risk. The most important job for the fire service, may I?
We have a lengthy agenda.
You have the report in front of you.
I appreciate all your comments, sir. Thank
Please
you.
don't make this cut.
Next is Mike McDivitt.
Is that it? You're going to write it some way.
I'm sorry. Wasn't
Yeah, I know. It's okay. It's all right.
didn't spell it that way.
Mike DeZavitt, 248 Browning Road. I'm a lifelong resident of Norwich and currently serving as president of Norwich Firefighters Local 892. Councilwoman Philbrick, I commend your dedication to be here after just suffering a broken leg. I'm asking the City Council to fund the fire inspector's position it is proposing to cut. Cutting this position reduces the workforce of the fire marshal's office by 33%. All departments were asked to reduce their budgets, but a 33% reduction to the workforce far exceeds this request. The fire marshal's office is crucial to the safety and well-being of the city. Fire inspections, fire prevention, and future development, all the plans for the city go through the fire marshal's office. The fire marshal's office currently is not able to meet the state mandates for fire inspections because we don't have enough fire marshals now. This fact has been made clear to you this year, prior years, and here tonight. Eliminating the fire inspector position reduces the eyes in the field for inspections and therefore increases the risk for life safety and fire code violations, which in turn puts public safety and the firefighters at risk. And then it also puts the city on the hook for increased liability. This proposed reduction is being made with the hope that the city can just make it with 2 inspectors. But the fact is, you cannot do more with less. You can only do less with less. The office's job is to make life safety code enforcement decisions. This means making sure the apartments buildings have a proper and clear exits, working fire alarms, making sure the sprinkler systems work correctly, and administering burn permits, ensuring building remodels are done properly, educating our children on fire safety, and the list continues on. Speaking on behalf of my firefighters, when our job is to protect and sacrifice for others, It is a morale killer to stand here and to compete for funding to replace one job over another. To be very clear, choosing to cut this position while knowing the dangers and risks that could result is reprehensible, and a conscious decision that endangers public safety and the firefighters working to solve the emergency problems. Solve this problem. Restore funding to the Fire Marshal's office. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Stone.
Good evening. Diane Stone. I live on Harland Road. First of all, I'm not sure if it's coming up tonight, but I do support the lowering of the cap on the fund balance. We're not in a position in this city to save more money than we're already saving, so I think lowering it is a wise decision. The process that you've used to reach this 5% cut is a little bit painful and a little bit confusing. I read every single line of the budget and every single line of these cuts, and there are things that can be cut. Some of them will cause a bit of pain, but there are things that can be reasonably cut for some austerity. So why not go line by line in this and look at the consequences of each and every one of these cuts that's proposed and make a decision on each and every one of those cuts, rather than having them in the packages that they're in, rather than having them fit into that neat 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%. Cut what can be reasonably cut and see where the chips fall then. That sounds reasonable to me. And think about how the city can do things differently next year. I think that I looked quickly at the information that Alderman DeLucia handed out, and it makes perfect sense, and it has some creative thinking behind it. Alderman Philbrick said a few weeks ago that she was going to be leaving as soon as this budget was done. None of you should ever see this budget as a finish line or there being a finish line to this budget. You have to work on it all year long. Maybe if that were to happen, we wouldn't be faced with slash and burn at budget time every year. The impact of the cuts in this budget in the short term is that you will defer a mill rate increase. It'll happen this year. I'm a taxpayer. I don't want to pay any more than I already do, and I don't want to pay any more than I don't want to do that any more than anyone else. But the cost of the proposed cuts in here are tremendous. Cumulatively, they wipe out recreation. They underfund education. The police department loses $250,000. Fire marshals loses a third. There's going to be a lot of damage with these cuts, and if you vote for them, you absolutely own all of that damage. One cut that stood out to me in all of these exhibits is a reduction in salary for the Human Services Director. And I can only assume that she actually offered this up, that she wasn't targeted for it, but that she decided to sacrifice her salary to protect her department's resources. I believe she's here, and I would like to applaud her leadership. That shows true leadership to say, take it from me and not from my people or my department. Mr. Mayor, I would ask that you consider modeling that leadership by absorbing that $5,000 cut. Don't let her take a cut in her salary. Absorb that $5,000 cut in your own salary, and let Ms. Gomes stay whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sherry?
Good evening. Sherry Ostrout.
Stroud, thank you.
Yeah, I apologize for the handwriting. I'm at 251 Harland Road in Norwich Town. And I'm here again speaking this year about the budget options before you, and I'm here to ask again this year what the city's plan is. What is the plan for this city? I'd like to know what you're actually voting on. I do find it a bit confusing, and what it actually means to the city and the city service. There's a tiny line item that indicates what the impact would be on some of these devastating cuts, and I do call them devastating. The city manager proposed a very bare budget and a balanced budget some weeks ago, and now we have 5 more iterations that further cuts seem to be really impacting very, very negatively on our services. And I'd like to know more specifically what that impact would be. There are things that are said in these iterations, such as not being able to clear some parking lots of snow, closing Spalding Pond, cutting salaries for the Human Services Director, and cutting police officer positions and the fire marshal, just a few to mention. Some of the cuts seem make-believe to me because you can't cap spending if there's a fire or a crisis, so that kind of cutting seems a bit reckless and irresponsible and something that is just on paper anyway. And cutting year after year isn't a plan for the city. The city, from my perspective, hasn't done enough in terms of economic development. Yet I see we're increasing the line item for NCDC, and I support this investment. But what I don't see is regular feedback or benchmarks for NCDC that provides a sense of return on investment or a report regularly here at our city council meetings. I see that there's an $8,000 investment that went to fix the ballparks, but we're looking to decimate the rec department. I don't understand that kind of decision-making. And what I also see, again, is that the city manager did provide, though, again, a bare-bones budget. This further cutting, this further slashing, I've heard that terminology, just very much feels and seems reckless and irresponsible. And I, again, just ask, what is the plan for this city? Because cutting year after year and not increasing revenue and focusing on that with benchmarks and with the return on investment is not managing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person who signed up, first name looks like Martin. Martin Ruchik.
Good evening. My name is Martin Ruchik. I'm a taxpayer, a lifelong resident of Norwich. I have an office at 126 Broadway. I'm not living in town presently, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the children who do not have a parent to take them to a beach. We have many, many children whose parents are working. They don't have the opportunity to deliver their children to Little League ball games, baseball ball games. We don't see them at the ball games because there's no one to take them. I'm here because of what I read about Spalding Pond, and that last year it was not open because you couldn't generate lifeguards to be with these children. Norwich does not have a swimming pool. Norwich does not have a YMCA, but we have an overload in the socio-economic area of children, I'll be quick, of children who don't have the opportunities. I ask you, as representatives of this community, not to deny these children an opportunity. Take them by bus if you have to. The budget can wait. These children should not be denied. And don't close down Spalding Pond. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Heather Romansky.
Heather Romansky, 297 Scotland Road. It seems I often find myself standing in front of you about this time of year, asking you to tread lightly when looking at the budget and potential areas to cut. So here I am tonight, again, to beg you not to make the proposed devastating cuts to the Board of Education budget. I could stand here and take my allotted 3 minutes to remind you about the successes and the struggles of the Norwich Public Schools. Thing is, you already know about them. Many of you sat with Board of Ed members just last week and heard about the tenuous situation facing our schools: rising tuition costs, federal and state mandates, and skyrocketing special education costs. So you know all that. Approximately 3 weeks ago, the City Council voted unanimously in favor of appropriating $800,000 for improvements at Dodd Stadium. The next day, on the front page of the Norwich Bulletin, the following quote caught my eye. "This stadium is about more than baseball," Mayor Peter Nystrom said. "It's about investing in our youth." It makes me a little sad that I live in a city where upgraded HVAC lighting and other fixes to a baseball stadium are more of a priority than funding our kids' education.
Thank you. Donna Ralston.
Good evening, Mayor Nystrom and City Council members. My name is Donna Ralston from 4 Whitehall Landing in Mystic, Connecticut. I'm the assessor for the city, and I'm here to speak on the proposed cuts to the assessor's budget. The return of a full-time clerk is in the proposed budget, and it is needed desperately. During the budget hearings, I was asked if I was meeting my statutory responsibilities, and I said barely. I should have said no. For the past 2 years, with the loss of a clerk, I've been forced to ask for an extension to file the grand list, which is statutorily due by January 31st each year. And completing mapping changes has become almost impossible, and all departments have become dependent on those. Last year, we signed a contract with the revaluation company to measure and list and value all real estate within the city, except condominiums. We wanted to do them ourselves so that we could resolve a few issues that we discovered over the past few years. By reducing the clerk to 28 hours, we will be unable to complete that task, and we will have to pay the revaluation company to do them for an additional $50,000. More than the cost of the clerk in the budget. The revaluation is a major project that requires monitoring. Eliminating the clerk position altogether would not only cost the city that $50,000, but would cause a huge backlog in the office, and we would be forced to close to the public 1, 2, or even 3 afternoons per week in order to complete the statutorily mandated tasks associated with that project. Staffing the assessor's office can and will ensure a uniform, fair assessment base that in turn might even make next year's budget season a bit easier. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Mills.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. My name is Bob Mills. I'm the president of Norwich Community Development. I live in Niantic, Connecticut. My house is in Niantic, Connecticut. I spend more time in Norwich than in Niantic. NCDC is your chosen development agency. It's a private nonprofit development agency. And we're here to grow the city. Our mission, our purpose is to help the city's economy grow, to grow the city and the surrounding areas of Norwich. And, you know, I'm here to beg for a little bit of funding for a couple of places because it's very difficult to grow the city without any resources. So there's a few things that I'd like to talk to you about just real quickly. But as you heard earlier from the city manager, NCDC was mentioned a couple of times for efforts that go kind of above and beyond. And you actually heard from one of the members of the public about the lack of reporting and you know, ideas of what's coming out of NCDC, and I totally agree. You know, you're looking at kind of a one-man band, so it's a little difficult to do all the things that we should be doing. But I would specifically like to say that, you know, we're not going to cut our way out of a problem like this, and we've got to start investing in economic development. And what I mean by that is, yes, you have been great funding partners with NCDC, but now, after the past 3 years of continual cuts, I'd like to get that funding restored to NCDC so we can hire a third person, and begin to build more and more capacity to do more and more things. I scramble from one phone call to the next, one meeting to the next. I don't have any time on my calendar to do anything other than just deal with the stuff that's coming at me. There's not a lot of proactive work going on, and it leads to the kinds of comments that you heard from the public. It's true. We need to put more investment into economic development. The purpose would be entirely to grow the city, to grow the assets of the city, the economic condition of the city, and to help stem the tide of the pressure on taxes. And specifically, what I'm asking you to do is, and I said this last time I was up here, you have an amazingly difficult challenge in front of you, and I wouldn't trade places with you for the world. But I think I'm looking for a minimal amount of investment to give us some tools to work with. Return NCDC's full funding to $150,000, so that's a $50,000 investment. To fund the mayor's budget for marketing. We've not ever marketed the city, and there's a couple of really great videos out there with no marketing. So we need to get that money in there too.
That concludes those who signed up ahead of time. Someone else like to speak under citizen comment, please raise your hand and I will acknowledge you. Yes, Mr. Farwell. I will move left and right, taking turns going back and each side of the room.
Good evening. Bob Farwell, Director of Otis Library. I reside at 50 Mistuxet Avenue in Mystic. I had a few brief comments. One of them is sort of a tactical comment, which is in the 3% scenario. It states that reductions to specifically the Sachem Fund and the Diversity Initiative will lead to less investment in economic development, historic and/or cultural activities and resources. The same sort of comment could be made if you cut another $50,000 from the Otis Library, and I think it would be certainly an appropriate comment on that. One of the constants in most of the comments that have been made this evening have been this sort of cycle that we go through every year of budgetary angst, where we talk about what we have to cut, we talk about the lack of economic development, and I would at least like to make some suggestions, which I hope will be received as positive suggestions, about how we might get out of this cycle. One of the comments made in the Plan of Conservation and Development on page 18 is leveraging assets that emphasize and capitalize on the diversity of people and places in the city of Norwich. And shortly after rereading that document and making note of that comment, I also read a report called Inclusive Recovery in U.S. Cities. This is a study that was done by the Urban Institute. And what they mean by inclusive recovery is a place that overcomes economic distress in a way that promotes the opportunities of all residents. And I think we have neglected a good portion of our population, especially minorities. Minorities are a growing part of the Norwich community. We should have initiatives, and I don't care what the vehicle is. That's a decision that's not up to me, but we need more vehicles that will maximize those contributions. We can look to cities like Lowell, Massachusetts as models. The information is out there. Otis Library is a resource that has a lot of experience in this area and ought to be treated as a credible partner in any further initiatives in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Wilson.
Good evening, Darrell Wilson, 32nd Street. So we're here again. We're here, same place we were last year about this time. Five exhibits, 5 different levels of cuts, and yet nothing has gotten accomplished from last year. I say that because many of you sitting up there made a campaign slogan, promises made, promises kept. And if we look back so far what we've done this year, you promised Board of Ed 2% last year and they got 1%. Yet they're running on a deficit this year. They need money to reach a certain level to make sure that our kids have a certain investment down the road. And yet Out of 8%, we've got 2%. We're giving a recreation department a full-time director, but cutting all other staff underneath that help facilitate programs and grow the department. We have a director in human services who's giving back. The same scenario continues to happen year after year. We're not getting anywhere. We talk about economic development, we talk about businesses coming here, families moving here. They're not moving here because we're still sitting in the same spot. We can't keep doing business this way. You have departments that are going to scramble for the next 4 or 5 weeks while you sit here and make a decision. And the decision's not going to be made until sometime in June. So now you have families worried about whether they're going to get a layoff notice, how they're going to continue to provide for their families, and whether or not they're going to still be able to service this community. And we have a school board who still has not gotten what they need, and they've got employees as well that will go through this same process. We continue to shrink the workforce, but ask for a lot to be done. So what I ask you to think about morally is, are the decisions I'm making sitting here impacting the city in a positive way to grow it, or am I continue to decimate the city? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Ryan Thompson, Public Works Director, also 18 Sturtevant Avenue, Norwich, President. John, I know I said I wasn't going to speak, but I promise this isn't, I'm not going anywhere there. I have to say something. All of us department heads, we all have done what you've asked. We've all looked internally to our own departments. We've looked at ways to cut costs, to save money. I could give you countless examples from Public Works. Many of you already know those examples. And we've all done it, and all of us need the funding we're asking for. We just, frankly, we do. We understand there's also a need to lower taxes. We don't dispute that. But I think what we really have to do, and this is just my thoughts as a resident and as a department head, is stop looking at how to cut the individual departments, but look at how we can, go from beyond just making our own cost savings in our departments to making them more across the board at the city. And they're tough. And I know that John has done a lot of this. It's not an easy process and it takes time. But things that we need to do is to renegotiate contracts. We need to look at consolidating contracts. And I'm not going to get specific, and I don't want to get anybody, riled up. But there are people that do the same job in different unions in different parts of the city. We can look at ways to consolidate those to save money. We can look at ways to order materials and use them, from one place as opposed to ordering them over here and ordering them over there 2 different times. There are those types of things that can be done in this city. And that's what we really need to be looking at, because continuing to cut just makes us very, very inefficient. And I hate to say that, because I take my job very seriously. I love doing what I do, but I don't want to be inefficient, and I don't want to have to say I can't do something. But we're going to get to that point if we continue to keep cutting. Thank you.
Thank you. Left side, yes, ma'am. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Mary Ann McNallen. I am a resident of Norwich, 6 Washington Place. I pay the highest taxes in this town for my area. I have a couple of thoughts. And first, I need to say that I've never been against paying taxes, because where would our schools be? Where would any town be without it? So I actually I'm a teacher in New London, where they have a group that says lower our taxes. So no matter what, we can't get the taxes up, regardless of who's suffering because of it. So I have never complained about Norwich raising their taxes, not that I really can afford it. I'm not saying that. But what are we paying for? And I've heard a lot of good things today. When you start cutting things that kids need, Spalding Pond, cutting things that draw families, on my street, on Washington Place, we've had 3 families move out. It's a 6-family drive. And I see houses for sale all over my neighborhood. And I just think that you've got to look at the way business as usual isn't working, and that was a campaign pledge. It's not working. Cutting taxes is not always the answer. Just say cut, 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 eliminate people. So there's a couple of things that I also want to say is that I have tried over the years to contact people, various people in various offices in my city, and I've never gotten a response. It's very frustrating to deal with a town that won't return phone calls, that won't return letters. My time's running out. Really quickly, I want to say that we're not going to have any trees if we don't do anything about the gypsy moth caterpillars. My neighbor and I, we just killed thousands of little baby caterpillars riding up her thing. I see nothing being done about it. I personally did a lot around my neighborhood for this. We have complained about our garbage collection. We pay taxes on our garbage. I'm assuming that you chose the people that we're doing businesses with, Willimantic Waste, because they're cheaper. That doesn't mean that carte blanche, they could be rude and get away with whatever. They're not very respectful or responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this side? Yes, sir.
John Levanti, 85 Lawler Lane. My suggestions relate to the operations that take place in City Hall. We have quite a number of operations down in this building, and what I'm thinking is, if it's possible, I don't know if it's possible, that people who are not department heads in City Hall should be rotated around from one department to the next. I don't know all the details of how the departments work, but people talk about hiring people, laying off people. Why don't you just stick with the number of people you have right now, move the people around from one department to the next, with the exception of the human services, not human services, human resources, and the city manager's office. And I would suggest to let the city manager figure that part out, how that would work by himself. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, please.
My name is Eugenia Molinix. I'm at 5 Washington Place. I just wanted to kind of reiterate what my neighbor has spoken about. We have been loyal taxpayers for, since I've been here for over 8 years. My neighbor's been here for 14 years. And as taxpayers, we expect our voices to be heard when we have complaints. You guys are talking all about cutting, and yet anytime that, over the last month when I've had a complaint, there's always been, well, we could do this and we could do that, when the cheapest method would be to just get a new driver for the garbage cans, because it's been going on for over a month at this point. And solutions are great, long-term solutions, but at the same time, one complaint only against one person, never complain against somebody else. This is a driver that can't drive. But basically, what I'm trying to say is, I don't mind paying taxes as long as our voices are being heard. And since living here, I don't feel like my voice is being heard. There's no reason to live in a town to pay taxes and not be heard, because that's what you're going to end up losing, the taxpayers. You don't have that many homeowners here to pay for the taxes, and you want to keep the homeowners and make them feel satisfied and happy, and you guys are not able to do that. And I would like to hear some creative solutions on what are we going to do to promote this town. This town has a lot of potential. It was beautiful at one point before I came here, and over the 8 years, I've seen it slowly dwindle into into less than, and I don't want to see that. I want to keep paying taxes, and I want to further this community. We just got to be creative, and I'm not sure how to do it, but I want families to move in here, and people come in, they hear stories from others, and they're not going to want to move here, and that's it.
Thank you. Anyone on the right side like to speak? Back to the left. Yes, Ms. Hayes?
Oops. You get two.
I know. Okay.
Good evening, David Crabb, 47 Prospect Street. I'll address resolutions 1 through 7 and 14. Where is the tax cut? Two things are sure in life, you all know that. So forget economic development. The state is next to last place in the nation in that category. Focus on keeping taxpayers in Norwich until they die. BAA in Resolution 1 is one letter shy of bad. Think of Walmart and price rollback. Overpriced mortgages from liars' loans reside in the U.S. Treasury, with those so-called assets now in the grand list via Vision's reevaluation and are on the table for the BAA. Norwich is not in a good position based on real estate transactions over the duration, with last Friday's bulletin insert as proof. I condensed those real estate transactions two ways: the number below 100,000 K or the municipality with the lowest price. Colchester had one below 100,000. East Lyme had one too. Groton's lowest was 110,000, and Lebanon had one below. Ledyard lowest was 172,000. Lyme's was 189,000. Montville had two below 100,000. New London one, and Norwich had 8. Old Lyme lowest was 240,000. Stonington ended the list with 128,000, the lowest. Only Norwich taxpayers subsidizes non-revenue generators that add to the grand list. Bite the bullet. Remember, BAA spells bad. Resolution 14. This two-page handout documents the origin of the opioid crisis in Connecticut Magazine on page 1. Page 2 from my health letter that shows how these manufacturers lobbied Congress successfully to legalize these products. Only Congress can change the law. Now, it took more than a decade for the tobacco settlement for a half a dozen manufacturers. How long is it going to take for all these when the law is on their side? Get a hold of your congressman to find out what's going on. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hayes?
Good evening, Sheila Hayes, 382 Laurel Hill Avenue. I will not go over the, repeat the information on the budget piece because you've heard it. I echo the sentiments that were stated earlier by many of the residents. But I'm going to walk down a door, or maybe open a door, that, that may make you feel uncomfortable. So, you have a resolution number 14 that says you want to support a class action lawsuit on the opioid issue. And yet, we have several nonprofits in the city who are addressing the opioid situation in this city. And this city, through its tax assessor's office, has decided to tax them on their property. And the city manager and the mayor has taken a hands-off position to that. So we're going to join a lawsuit to go after the pharmaceutical companies, and we're going to tax the nonprofits who help the people who need the help. So where's the money going to come from? I've read the ordinance with the lawsuit. It either can come out of if there's a settlement, or it comes out of us. But where's the money going to come from when we have a lawsuit from the nonprofits because they have to sue the city to provide the services that we need them to provide for the people in the community who are suffering not just from some type of addiction, it could be from any kind of medical condition, okay? Full disclosure, I am a patient of UCFS. I utilize their dental services. What's going to happen when those dental services are no longer afforded to people who don't have dental insurance? I don't understand what you're doing. I don't understand as a city where we're going. You want to be, and I know I made this statement before, we like to have lawsuits. We will pay out millions in lawsuits, but we won't sit down and figure out how to address the issue before it gets to lawsuit stage. So I'm asking all of you, sit down and straighten out the budget situation. Sit down and straighten out this whole tax situation. Instead of saying, sue us. Okay? Why do we have a city manager and a mayor office that we elect, city council that we elect, and you take a hands-off position to the very people you're supposed to be representing? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak under citizen comment?
Marvin Ceruto, 100 Star Street, Norwich, Connecticut, United States of America. I would like to remind each and every one of you that you are elected so that we can be fiscally responsible. If I have to go away tonight being the bad guy, then so be it. Over the next decade, I'll probably be responsible for close to $500,000 worth of property. That's over $20,000 in taxes. I don't know if I'm going to have the ability to do that. My family here in Norwich, I probably represent close to $3 million worth of taxes. They all want the cut. Now, I did a little research on unfunded mandates. I can't get a straight answer from anybody. And I understand these unfunded mandates come from Hartford, Connecticut. Well, you know, over the last couple months, Hartford, Connecticut has been spending right through the roof. I'd much rather spend my money in this town than in that town. So if Hartford, Connecticut is the enemy, then it's time for Norwich, the home of Norwich Guns, to lock and load, rally the troops, and go defeat the enemy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak under citizen comment? Please.
Beryl Fishbone, 19 Bliss Place. Your job is not easy, and the people tonight are asking for answers, and you're not going to have them, and it's okay. I want you to know that it's okay not to have the answers, but it's not okay to not ask the questions. Not the questions of the same people who are not being able to give you new answers. Ask people, different people. Ask people that are in similar situations in other places. What are they doing? How are they doing it? What did they do to solve their problem? How did they get their town to look around themselves and to change their minds, to change the way that they did things, to want to seek a bigger and better place to be? And now that I've said that, my other point tonight in speaking is to ask you to please do not allow any cut to Spalding Pond.
This city has very few things for its youth to do in an organized fashion. Going to the beach is a privilege, but in Norwich, it's their right, and that shouldn't be denied them. And there are ways that it can be funded. It needs to be funded. And if you need help finding that funding, I will help you. But I can't do it alone, and neither can you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else under citizen comment? Sir.
Rob Dembski, 36 Rare Avenue. I'm here to speak in favor of continuing the proposed process for a third year, which, in reference to a previous comment, I suppose quite technically makes this a year-after-year process. But I would frankly be more interested in the preceding 6 decades or so of budgets that have left the current council in the position in which you now find yourselves, which, as other people alluded to, is an unenviable one. I'd like to also notice that tonight, as in other nights that I've been here, I don't see either of our elected representatives for the 46th and the 139th districts. And I mention that only because the goings-on in Hartford are directly responsible for a lot of the problems that you find yourselves having to deal with. The ECS funding and other cuts to the city that have been made in previous years have put an additional burden on this council. And I hope that some of the folks who have spoken tonight in opposition to the reductions, which again I find to be a reasonable course of action, will use their influence in talking with those individuals and perhaps getting them to vote in a more responsible way on the state budget so that you can get the much needed help that you require in the city budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else under citizen comment? Anyone else under citizen comment? Third and final time. Anyone else under citizen comment? Seeing no one else, thank you all for your comments and sharing your concerns. Declare it closed. New business.
Number 1, relative to an amendment of the 2018-19 budget adjustments to revenues.
I entertain a motion to bring the resolution forward, please. Alderman Nash, second. Alderman Stacey Gould. Is there discussion? For members of the public, this is a resolution dealing with adjustments to revenue. It comes from the city manager's office. Is there further discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Vote is 7-0.
Number 2, relative to an amendment of the 2018-19 budget for expenditure reductions as enumerated in Exhibit 1.
A motion to bring it forward, please. Alderwoman Stacey Gould, is there a second? Pro Tem Nash, is there discussion?
Yes,
Yeah, please. Alderwoman Brenham.
I have a lot of discussion. First of all, I think it's going to be difficult to discuss all of these separately because they, they're quite entangled in one another. So I guess, we'll do our best. My first question is, what was the stakeholder engagement process with the departments for how we, in totem, reached all of these 1 through 5, the exhibits 1 through 5?
Mr. City Manager.
These were done in consultation with each department. We started with getting suggestions from the departments. We analyzed those. We, meaning the finance director and myself, then depending on what those numbers were, made additional changes or didn't agree with some of the changes that departments had. Then after that, we went back to the departments and showed them what the changes were, received other comments. Ultimately, we needed to come up with the 1 through 5 scenario. So ultimately, I had to make a decision based on the input I got from the various department heads and the finance director.
Thank you. And so I just want to make sure everybody's clear about how all of these things tie together. So we pulled back an ordinance regarding the undesignated fund balance, which we had a public hearing on already. Or this was going to be the public hearing tonight, the ordinance that was removed.
Withdrawn.
Right, it got withdrawn. It got changed so that we have to have another posting and reading, yes?
Which will happen at the end of the evening, the
At
posting.
the end of the evening, okay. This move, the undesignated fund balance, this will impact our budget by
Potentially.
reducing, potentially.
Yes.
So, again, we don't really have the full picture of what we're actually looking at. So it's difficult to make decisions on these items, but that's more just commentary. And then I know it's the intention of many on this day is that we pass all of these tonight so that we can move forward and prolong this process. And we have a public comment coming up on Monday. What is the public commenting on? We still don't have a budget, even if we pass all of these 5 things.
The opportunity on the 14th, which is the next scheduled public hearing a week from this evening, is for members to pass or to consider their comments on the budget as proposed by the city manager and any amendments that may pass tonight.
Okay.
Cumulatively, all the subject is on the table.
Okay. So that's very confusing, and I think, you know, the longer we prolong this, I think it was mentioned that, you know, we will only, you know, increase anxiety and agita and just general unrest with the longer that we prolong this, but I understand that that's the process. So my question regarding at least level 1 is why, so the mayor, we had a Board of Ed and council workshop last week, and the mayor, like we've heard some comment tonight, editorialized that, you know, the state is spending money that they don't have on new programs and things like that. Why wasn't the first round, why didn't that include new line item budget spending, such as the additional $250,000 in the mayor and city council budget? Why was the new spending not proposed first to be cut?
If you go through, one, I didn't put the exhibits together. It's left to the administration.
Yeah, that's my question.
Which I think is the best way, because the administration at the end of the budget process then manages the city and its resources and the departments and employees. The city manager and the comptroller proposed the order. It was not, no political will was exerted on this. They proposed the exhibits. They're the administration, they run the city. We simply decide whether we can live with in this case, a 52 mil rate in downtown Norwich. I think we should not. I think a 52 mil rate downtown is excessively high, and it says something very bad about the city of Norwich.
I agree, but that's what, so this level 1, I just don't understand why it doesn't include new spending. I just don't see, you know, other towns and other cities, the way they do their budgets, this is not the process that they do. We receive the budget and then we go through line item by line item, rather than having these siloed exhibits. And not only are they siloed, they're siloed in that we vote for each one of these, but it's cumulative. So Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2, Exhibit 3, it all rolls up into Exhibit 5. So just everybody's clear about the cumulative nature of these cuts. And I agree, and I know that these are difficult decisions to make, but I just, how we came to the particular line items that were chosen when there was obviously, I hate the business buzz terms, but low-hanging fruit that could have been proposed first, I would have liked to see that there, so I hope that there's an opportunity to have that discussion.
That opportunity awaits all of us, absolutely. But That can only be answered by the administrators. Again, they put the exhibits together without our influence, and I think that's important to some degree, that they have the independence, because at the end of the day, they will be the ones running the city of Norwich. We don't do that, any of us. It's their mission to do that.
I understand. So what's the mechanism? I guess, I'm new. What's the mechanism to move items within the exhibits?
Anyone is free to offer an amendment on a resolution in front of us. The question is helping our comptroller keep track of things. If you're proposing something to be added to this exhibit or deleted, you can do that. The question is, we want to keep track of it because he has to keep track.
Hence the convoluted nature of this exercise.
The exhibits were a creation of our city manager last year. We didn't instruct him to do that. This was what he offered the council last year when it came back to us. We did instruct him to find 5% savings prior to the budget adopted the prior year in efforts to reduce some of the tax burden. He chose the exhibits. It's a model he clearly is comfortable with. Only he can really answer that defined question, I think. And if you want to ask him, please do so.
No, I understand, and I think we all want to accomplish the same things. We don't want to add burden to our citizens while we still want to provide the highest and greatest level of service to our citizens. So we're all trying to get at the same goal. I'm just trying to understand the process. That's my comments right now for level 1.
Thank you.
Coming
Alderman
attractions.
Browning?
Looking at this, I have a difficulty agreeing to any one of these other than the first one in terms of, agreeing to, all these cuts. I would like to divide the question on the Eliminate Recreation Director Program Administrator, which is 80012 89999, if I have the numbers correctly. And that's both the salary and I believe the benefits. And I'd like to have a separate vote on that.
I'm not sure what that is.
That's not on this.
I'm not sure what that is.
Are we on Exhibit 2? Or?
No.
We're on Exhibit 1.
Okay, then I will withdraw for now.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that would be the next. Yeah. Okay. Are there further questions on Exhibit 1? Seeing no other questions on Exhibit 1. And all those in favor of Exhibit 1, we'll call the vote. 1, 2, 3, 6 opposed. Exhibit 1 passes. The vote is 6-1.
Can I change my vote? I'm sorry. Sorry. Okay.
No do-overs.
No do-overs.
Did you announce the vote?
I did announce the vote.
Okay.
You did.
Sorry. Well,
I'll be slower.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Resolution 3, please.
Relative to an amendment of the 2018-19 budget for expenditure reductions as enumerated in Exhibit 2.
A motion to bring it forward, please. Alderwoman Philbrick, second by Alderwoman Stacey Gould. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderwoman Stacey Brown. Stephanie Brown, excuse me.
So again, the nature, these are just things I want to have in the record, the nature of the things that are being proposed, and you can't consider one without the other. So the city clerk told us that they are barely meeting regulations and the things that they need to do during their budget hearings, and we're reducing a clerk position. Whereas it doesn't come to us until Exhibit 4 that we are reducing our membership to CCM, which could save a good portion of this city clerk position. So, and I was here last year when the CCM came and they lobbied to keep those membership dues, and I wasn't terribly moved then, and I'm not moved now. So I just think the considerations for some of these line items, in an effort to save the staff that we have to complete the tasks that they absolutely need to do, how these considerations came about, I just don't understand. So there will be eventual motions and amendments.
Again, I think that's a similar question earlier that the city manager will provide an answer if he chooses. I would remind everyone, this is not the final vote. We'll be working with our budget right through the beginning of June. This is only the charter-required action on the city manager's proposed budget that by charter we must act on tonight. And that's what we're doing. We're fulfilling our duties. Yes, Alderman Browning.
I will, since we're on Exhibit 2, I will go to the shared clerk position for finance, city clerk. That's items 80012, 89999, 80012, 89999, and I would like to divide the question on that and have a vote on that particular shared position.
You have that right. Is there a second to the motion to divide? No. No. For purpose's sake, we will accept a second. You want to have a separate vote, we will do so throughout
Yes.
the process. And that's with the corporate counsel's advice.
Okay.
Would you like to make a motion considering?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to restore funding to the shared clerk position for finance and city clerk. Both of these departments do a tremendous amount of business, and our city clerk's office is very busy. I will be making other such motions tonight, but I thought that I would start with this.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Yes, Alderman Burnham. Is there discussion on the motion?
Simply what I've already said.
Is there further discussion on the motion? Of the amendment, yeah. Is there further discussion?
I would simply say that I would like to restore the position, this particular position.
So for the record, your amendment would be removing this from Exhibit 2,
Correct.
so that the public understands what we're actually reaching out for. Okay. No other discussion? Yes, Alderman Filbert.
So having said that, Alderman Browning, how do you propose to make up the difference?
I think that what we're going to end up having is an amalgamation of the 1 through 5, and if you take the restoration through all of the 5, it will probably add up to a composite close to what the savings would be on 2 or 3.
Okay, and I will say, as Mayor Nystrom said, this is a very preliminary city manager's budget. We as a council, through our own mechanisms, will go through and do our own pick and choose of what we feel needs, what can be saved and what cannot be saved. This is going to be an incredibly difficult budget season. But having said that, in the 14 years that I have lived here, I have heard the same mantra. So at some point in time, we have got to make cuts. Is it going to be difficult? Yes. But you know what I have found through my life experiences, when somebody tells you that you have to do more with less, sometimes you do. There are things in here that are vitally important to me, and I will get into my discussion as I go on. But this is a preliminary budget. We are not, what we vote tonight is not cast in stone. It is simply a review of the, so as you say, Alderman Browning, you believe that through the course of discussions and line item investigation that we will be able to find the money to offset this?
I'm saying, if I may answer.
Please.
I'm saying that we will not offset to the level 5 cut, which is what's proposed, not to the level 4. I'm not sure where we'll end up, whether it's 2 or 3. Yes, that will have an impact on our taxes. But on the other hand, I don't want to do this one night in June where we start the process there and we try to cram it into one evening. Instead, I want to start the process now, and I wish that we had had a roundtable the way we did with the school board, and maybe we could have resolved some of these issues, but here we are, and this seems to be the format, and we'll be disagreeing over a number of positions, and I guess that's the democratic process.
Alderwoman Filbert, you have the floor.
That's a fine explanation for me.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? The motion is defeated. The vote is 3-4. Is there further discussion on Exhibit 2? Yes.
I thought that the vote was Alderman Gould.
It was
4-3 in
4-3.
favor of the amendment.
I'm sorry. Did I read it wrong? The hands?
1, 2, 3.
Nashville, Brookhaven.
Alderman Gould, did you raise your hand?
Yes, I did.
I thought so.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. My mistake. It passes 4-3.
Blacked out for a second.
Is there further discussion on Exhibit 2? Alderman Browning?
I would like to go to the Eliminate Recreation Program Administrator, which is 80012-89999, and I would like to make an amendment to restore that position's funding.
Is there a second? Alderman Burnham? Is there discussion? Yes.
Yes.
Alderman Browning?
Once again, we have Recreation Program does a tremendous amount of business. We're going to be funding a director, but under this, we would take out their administrator, their second in command, or the person who's doing a lot of their administrative work. I don't think having 2 full-time people handling recreation is a bad idea. I recognize that it's a cut that could be made. I think we can politely disagree over it, but I would like at least a consideration of a vote on that position.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Alderwoman Filbert?
I have to say, I cannot in my capacity in this seat vote to have a full-time recreation director and a program administrator at the cost of $63,000. $63,000 and $20,000 in benefits. So that's $80,000 in change for a program administrator. But you don't want to keep a fire marshal. So when you don't have a fire marshal who protects the lives and safety of everyone in the city, but you have a program director who, may I remind you that the former program director ran the department for how many years? 5 years by herself? And the world didn't come to an end. As I said, these are very difficult decisions. And this is a preliminary draft. But as I said, I cannot, in good conscience, vote to reinstate a program director at $63,000 plus benefits and cut some of the other proposed positions.
Is there further discussion? Alderman Browning?
I will just simply say that I don't support trimming a fire marshal, and we will get to that later on in the exhibits. Thank you.
Yes, Alderman Burnham.
I'll simply say that this is the time to have these conversations, preliminary or not. We do have a big task in front of us, but it is our jobs and it is our directive to have these conversations. So I don't feel that rushing through this and considering our amendments isn't out of the realm of possibility or things that we should be doing, and also supporting keeping a fire marshal. But I think, you know, a budget is a reflection of your values. And I think that there are things that me personally, I won't speak for anybody else, that I find valuable and value added and return on investment to the city, whereas some things aren't. So where we see the $80,000 as a great investment in our citizens, in our children, in the rest of the city, whereas other things we do not. So that's what these discussions are. We have a difference in values, we have a difference in philosophy and ideology, and that's what this is. That's what the job is.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, then all those in favor of the resolution?
Of the amendment?
The amendment, yes, the amendment. 4 opposed? Carries 4-3. Is there further discussion on Exhibit 2 as amended? Yes, Alderman Browning.
Final one for Exhibit 2. We're looking at items 80012, 89999, eliminate lead mechanic. I'd like to divide the question. I'd like to propose an amendment that we restore funding for this. I will be happy to discuss my rationale.
Second.
Okay, motion by Browning, second by Burnham. Just for the sake of public record, you're not dividing the position. You're simply dividing this from Exhibit 2.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Is there discussion on the amendment? Alderman Browning.
This is one of the things which I realized after I came in. Our garage does a tremendous amount of work maintaining more vehicles than perhaps we can even keep track of at any given time, such as police cars, fire trucks. Something's always breaking down. Public works vehicles. Someone needs to maintain them. We need to do this probably in-house to save money. I recognize there will be other cuts to positions within the Public Works Department. You will notice that I'm not trying to save every last Public Works position. I looked at this, and this seemed rationally something to save because I think we need a full crew to maintain vehicles, and these are sophisticated things to keep maintained. I am just awed that they can keep the stuff that we have on the road. So this is my attempt to save one position in Public Works.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? President Pro Tem Nash.
I find myself in agreement with Alderman Browning on this one. The fleet maintenance, I'm pretty close to those guys down there. I go see them regularly, talk about fire trucks and the police cars and some of the other fleets that we have going on. And they are losing a gentleman who's being transferred into another department, and it's going to cut them short of mechanics. So to cut them another mechanic, at this point, their job load is not decreasing, it's increasing. And we risk the chance, I always talk about this line that we get to in a city where we're cutting the budget to a point where we could hurt ourselves. And I just want to make a quick comment about last budget. You know, we were called draconian and evil and everything else, and the sky didn't fall, the city moved on, and we made the adjustments necessary. This process that we're doing here is a little better than I think the last process because we're getting a look at all 5 different exhibits and realizing the impact that it does have on our citizens who we were elected by to make the hardest decisions. And this is one of the hardest budgets I've ever sat through. And, but as far as the fleet maintenance guys, their workload's going up, and the last thing we want to do is cut them to a point where they have to start outsourcing their maintenance to other places. Right now, that we're fortunate that some of the vehicles we have are still under warranty, so they don't have to do too much work when something big goes wrong with them. But like Alderman Browning said, these guys are really up against the wall, and if we cut another guy from that department, there may be stuff that sits longer than necessary, and especially when we're talking about fire trucks, we need to get them back on the road and back into houses as quickly as possible, and have them sitting there delayed because we're short a mechanic isn't in the best interest of our city. So I would be supporting that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? It carries 5-2. Is there further discussion on Exhibit 2 as amended? Seeing none. All those in favor of Exhibit 2 as amended? That is unanimous, 7-0.
Relative to an amendment of the 2018-2019 budget for expenditure reductions as enumerated in Exhibit 3.
Motion to bring it forward. Alderwoman Stacey Gould, is there a second?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, I asked for a first and a second to bring it forward. Alderman Gould, is there a second? Alderwoman Filbert. Is there discussion on Exhibit 3? Alderwoman Burnham?
I would like to I don't know what the mechanism is, but to move the elimination of the Sachem Fund and the elimination of the multicultural program up to Exhibits 1 or 2 to cover some of the costs. Huh? Can you do that? Can't do that? All right, can't do that. Oh, okay. I'll get it next time. Therefore, I would like to separate out the reduction of the lifeguards for Spalding Pond and remove those
So
from Exhibit 3.
Recreation line item, it says 92, origin 01032, and that is, object is 813, reduce lifeguards, the $18,160. That's the line item you're referring to? Okay, in the form of a motion you have?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second? Alderman Nash. Is there discussion?
I think it's pretty clear that we cannot have the Spalding Pond closed again.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing that, okay, all those in favor of the amendment? It's unanimous, 7-0. Is there further discussion on Exhibit 3? Alderman Browning.
I'm going to the Otis Library, reduce Otis Library by 5%. That's 80077. I would like to divide the question, and I would like to amend this by removing this from the exhibit, this cut from the exhibit.
Is there a second? Alderman Burnham? Okay. Is there discussion? Go ahead.
Otis Library submitted a flat budget this year. They wanted the exact same money that they were awarded last year, and they took a cut last year. They were originally slated for $1,050,000. It got knocked down to $1 million. This year they applied for $1 million. I know their costs invariably are going up. I consider them a very important factor in the city in terms of promoting culture, learning, diversity, the stuff which they've been with us for a very long time, and I would like to restore their funding to their proposal.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor
Of the amendment?
the amendment? Hands high? So it's like, thank you. Opposed? That is a 3 to 4 in favor, so it fails. Is there further discussion on Exhibit 3? Yes, Alderman Browning.
I would like to, my understanding is the Sachem Fund was originally, the contribution was for $100,000. In this, it's for $50,000. I would like to amend this by cutting the entire contribution, which is a total of $100,000. And that's my, I would divide it out. It's line item 89580.
Under Corporation Council's advice, the first motion would be to increase the reduction to the 100,000.
Yes.
And the public should know this is another exhibit that actually includes taking out the other 50. You're trying to do it once.
If it's in number 4, I can wait until then.
I think it's split between the two exhibits.
1 second.
Can we caucus for 1 second, please?
Yeah. Okay, I will withdraw my attempts to amend that.
The whole amendment.
Against in regards to the Sachem Fund contribution.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Is there further discussion on Exhibit 3?
Having removed the lifeguards from the, oh, sorry, me. It's my hand.
Yes.
Okay. Having removed the lifeguards from this, this exhibit I just can't support the rest of it. So I'll be voting against it.
Okay, thank you. Is there further discussion on Exhibit 3? Seeing none, all those in favor of Exhibit 3? All those opposed? Motion passes 4-3. Exhibit itself. Resolution 5, please.
Relative to an amendment of the 2018-19 budget for expenditure reductions as enumerated in Exhibit 4.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderman Stacey Gould, is there a second? Alderman Pro Tem Nash. Is there discussion on Exhibit 4? Yes, Alderman Browning.
This will be my last attempt to divide the question, have a amendment, and I'd like to bring up the layoff of one fire inspector, and I would like to amend this to have their salary restored. I'd have them removed from this exhibit.
Okay, so for the record, that's page 75, and origin is 01022, 80,012, followed by 01022, and for fringe benefits, 89999.
Correct.
Thank you. Is there a second? Alderwoman Stacey Gould, is there discussion on the amendment? Alderman Browning.
As the chief has mentioned earlier, we are not even performing the fire inspections we need to today. I know that a lot of people assume that, they say, okay, what duties do the fire department do? And one of the things they do is prevent fires, and one of the easier way to prevent fires is to have buildings inspected and keep them from creating public hazards. So I can't give them any new fire inspectors. I get that we're never going to be in compliance, but I would like to keep at least 3 fire inspectors working the built-up areas of Norwich, and that's a personal opinion.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment?
More discussion.
What?
So I just think it's important to note that here we start getting into reducing our OPEB contributions and our pension contributions, and that does have the potential to influence our...
We haven't voted on the amendment yet.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I am all over the place.
All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Okay, the amendment passes 6-1. Is there further discussion on Exhibit 4? Okay. All those in favor of Exhibit 4 as amended?
I'm confused.
This is the final vote on Exhibit 4.
So,
Discussion now?
I asked for discussion. Nobody said anything. Nobody raised their hand.
I didn't hear you. Okay, let's vote.
Wait, hold on, I thought we just voted on the amendment.
As
You
amended.
voted, this is but the vote on the final
On the final
Exhibit
one.
4
Right,
as
thank you.
amended. That's what I'm asking.
As amended, okay.
All those in favor
I have
as
a
amended?
question. I need clarification.
What, Jill? I'm sorry.
I need clarification, and I will tell you for the record, I don't know if Stephanie ever noticed it, but it's very difficult to hear down here what's going on down there. Seriously. It's like
Thank
being
you.
in left field.
I'm apparently having more trouble here.
So just so I'm clear, we have voted to reinstate the fire inspector.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes. So, everyone ready to vote on Exhibit 4? Okay, all those in favor of Exhibit 4 as amended? All those opposed?
No, I'm still confused.
Mr. Mayor, I have to ask for a moment.
I understand.
I do have to leave, folks. I'm very sorry. It's my last day on the midnight shift at the Coast Guard. I'll be back next week on day shift, so I do apologize. I have to be on post at 10 o'clock. Good night.
Night. Exhibit 4 fails on 3-4. Resolution 6.
Relative to amendment of the 2018-19 budget expenditures for reductions enumerated in Exhibit 5.
I need a motion to bring it forward, please, for consideration. Alderwoman Philbrick, second by Alderman Burnham. Is there discussion? Alderwoman Burnham?
So I think it's important to note that when we get here to level 5, the cumulative nature of all of this, I didn't get to calculate all of the departments, but the departments were asked for a 1 to 5% cut in their budgets. So right now, where we stand, basically, human resources is at 5%. Finance is around 5%, education is around 2%, the police is around 4%, the rec department is at 20%, nothing from the volunteers, and 5% for adult services. So again, a budget is a reflection of your values, and I think it's pretty clear where our values are. I think this level would be catastrophic. It's 1 through 4, all the way up to 5. This would be catastrophic. We would risk issues with our bond rating, and these services to this extent cannot be cut at this level.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on Exhibit 5? Alderman Browning?
I've decided in the interest of moving things along not to continue to try to, amend questions and go after individual items because I'm going to be voting against Exhibit 5. I would say that if I was doing that, I do not support the layoff of 2 police officer positions. So I'm just going to simply vote against this versus taking up more time.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on Exhibit 5? Alderwoman Philbrick?
Yes, I would not be in favor of reducing the deputy comptroller's hours to 28 hours a week. There are positions that are vitally important, and I think this is one. So I would ask for an amendment to reinstate the deputy comptroller to his or her current level of staffing.
So for the record, you're referring to an amendment which would include page 56, origin 01012, object 80,012, reduced deputy comptroller 28 weeks. Your amendment is to remove this from Exhibit 5.
Correct.
Thank you. Is there a second? Alderman Stacey Gould. Is there discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? The amendment passes 4-2. Exhibit 5 as amended. Is there further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of Exhibit 5 as amended? Opposed? Exhibit 5 is defeated. The vote is 2-4. Seven, please.
Relative to the tentative adoption of the preliminary budget for fiscal year 2018-19.
Motion to bring Resolution 7 forward, please. Alderman Stacey Gould. Is there a second? Alderwoman Philbrick. For the record, this resolution is our final vote on the city manager's budget for tonight. It would encompass the amendments that in fact passed and any changes that incorporates to the city manager's proposed budget. Those exhibits that failed will not be in that. I hope that's clear. All those in favor of Resolution 7, yep, that it? Yep. It's unanimous. 6-0 is the vote. Mr. Comptroller, I don't expect you to have calculations tonight. But I know you'll get those to us as quickly as possible and make that available to the public, please.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind double-checking that tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. Please.
Number 8, relative to the sale of beer and wine at the Rosarts Festival at Chelsea Parade.
A motion to bring it forward, please. Yes, Alderwoman Stacey Gould and Alderwoman Stephanie Burnham. Is there discussion? No? Yes, please.
Well, I'll go ahead and say this. I mean, we all have the fond memories of the Rose Arts Festival that came back last year, and it was a big success, and I'm happy that we can be part of propagating that success.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the resolution? I would simply add that that is June 30th. You will see the Rose Arts again for a day on Chelsea Parade. We invite all of you to attend. It was a lot of fun last year. Thank you. All those in favor of Resolution 8? It's unanimous. The vote is 6-0.
Number 9, relative to an appointment of a regular member to the Commission of Persons with Disabilities.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderwoman Filbert, Alderwoman Stacey Gould, second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, the person who is being appointed as a regular member is Victor Harley. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Number 10, relative to an appointment of a regular member to the Community Development Advisory Committee.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderwoman Stacey Gould, is there a second? Alderman DeLucia, is there discussion? Seeing none, the person being appointed as a regular member is Sean Barnes. All those in favor? Unanimous. Vote is 6-0.
Number 11, relative to a reappointment of a regular member to the Board of Public Utilities Commissioner Sewer Authority.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderwoman Filbert, second by Alderman Stacey Gould. Is there discussion? No yes, please.
This is Robert Stanley.
Yeah, Staley.
Staley, my
Yes.
apologies. I previously had conversations with him. I think that he's concerned with the well-being and well-management of NPU. I support his candidacy.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion? Yes, Alderwoman Stacey Gould.
I will be supporting this resolution. I appreciate Mr. Saley wishing to continue on the Board of Public Utilities Commissioners. Brought some areas of expertise to the commission and has done an outstanding job. Thank you.
Alderman DeLucia.
And not to prolong this, but I echo Alderwoman Gould's comments. I was quite impressed with this gentleman when he sat before us and talked about not only his experience in his professional life, but the experiences he's already had as a member of the NPU board, and I look forward to his positive impact on the utility.
Thank you. For the record, this is an appointment for 5 years. This is his first full-term appointment if it passes. He was appointed approximately 9 months ago to fill an unexpired term. All those in favor of the resolution? It's unanimous. The vote is 6-0.
Number 12, relative to an appointment of a regular member to the Norwich Housing Authority.
Alderman Stacey Gould, is there a second? Alderwoman Filbert, is there discussion? Alderwoman Filbert?
I'm just happy that Mr. Berggren has decided to re-enter the political arena. I don't know what he's thinking, but I'm happy that he has decided to do so.
He wasn't thinking that. Any further discussion? Yes, Alderman DeLucia.
I'll only add that I was contacted by a few people who saw this on our agenda and assured me that this gentleman is a great pick, and I look forward to his service on the Norwich Housing Authority.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? I'd simply add my 2 cents. Alan Berggren is a real tremendous gentleman. He has only the best interests of the City of Norwich in his heart, and it is very nice to see him step forward to help us out. All those in favor of the resolution? It's unanimous, 6-0.
13, relative to an appointment as an alternate member of the Personnel and Pension Board.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderman Stacey Gould, is there a second? Alderman Burnham, thank you. Is there discussion on the resolution 13?
Joanne, did you have your hand up the whole time?
No, I'm totally confused now. It's so impossible to hear down here.
We're going to have to look into that. Okay, this is Resolution 13. It's appointment as an alternate to the Personal and Pension Board. The member proposed is Robert Dembski. All those in favor?
Oh, discussion.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. This person is one of my favorite sparring partners from the debates as he ran for city council. And I do respect him. However, I don't think I can support him for this position at this time because throughout his public statements, he stated that he wants to turn our pension format into 401k, and I don't think that that's the right direction for our pension board. So while I respect the candidate, I can't support it.
Okay, thank you. Is there further discussion? Yes, Alderman Browning.
This is definitely not a knock on him. I remember when I got appointed to the Reed and Hughes Committee well over back in 2010, and it was definitely the wrong fit for me in terms of everyone else wanted to save the building and I wanted to tear it down. And I'm just saying that, you know, some people fit very well into certain committees, but the 401k issue is one which I'm concerned about.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Yes, Alderman Stacey Gould.
Well, I understand your concerns. He is not the committee of one. There'll be a multitude of people on this committee, and while that may be his opinion, which he is perfectly entitled to, he's a committee of one. So unless he gets all of the other people to also think that way, so I think that opposing him because he had a particular issue on, or a particular view on one thing, doesn't speak well. I think we have to appoint people who have all kinds of opinions to our boards and commissions. It just can't be everybody that thinks like I think or you think or anyone else thinks. So I will be supporting Mr. Dembski on his appointment to the Personnel and Pension.
Alderman Burnham.
While I agree with you, Alderwoman Gould, with regard to this is one issue mostly. It's a pension. It's a pension board, stated ideology. You know, and you know, there's no minutes from the appoint and reappoint to see what the discussion entailed. So while we up here do have to consider broad points of view and different takes on things, pension board is pension board. So thank you. I appreciate it, and yes, entitled to your opinion, and thank you.
Is there further discussion? I will speak briefly. We often hear the word about diversity up here, and it's bantered about quite often. It seems we now have a litmus test on how people think for some members of this council, and I think that's a dangerous precedent to start acting on, a very dangerous precedent. We don't have thought police here in this community. All those in favor of the resolution as proposed? Opposed? Motion passes 4-2.
Number 14, relative to joining a class action lawsuit regarding the opioid lawsuit.
Resolution, please, we need a motion. Alderman Stacey Gould, is there a second? Alderman DeLucia, is there a discussion? Alderman Browning.
I just have a question, which is, when you file a suit, the other side gets a right to discovery. I'd like to ask Corporation Counsel, what do you think that burden will be? Will they want to see police department records, fire department records, social service records? What would our potential response be, and how much would they actually likely want to look at?
I'm not sure that they're going to do any great deal of detailed research of that sort rather than look for numbers in terms of the cost to actually municipalities. The issue we face now is the court has set a very short schedule with arguments on motions to dismiss and motions to strike the various complaints that are made set for the end of June. So time was significant. The thrust here is that, unlike the tobacco litigation was brought by states where the settlements all went to the state, there had been no set-asides for municipalities. This is an effort that started out by several municipalities in Connecticut to get ahead of the curve and to recognize the expenses that a municipality may incur in dealing with this particular issue. What the discovery will be at this point, I don't know, but my guess is that it's going to be fairly standardized discovery supervised by the court, which will be handled through the law firm that would come to us. It will take some time on the part of the city to put it together.
Yeah. I will just make a comment. I'm going to support this, but I will not be surprised if the companies file discovery motions, if this survives summary judgment, to obtain every piece of paper they can from the city of Norwich dealing with any sort of overdose and saying that they're entitled to it, and that will drive up our expenses somewhat. I'm just saying that if I was on the other side, this would be a technique I would use to try to dissuade the city of Norwich from pursuing this lawsuit. So I'm just saying this here so that if this happens a year down the road, you're not surprised.
Is there further discussion? Yes, Alderman Burnham?
Is this joining the lawsuit initiated by the City of New London?
They did it, well, they have their lawsuit that
They went
have
separate.
Scott and Scott using them as well. There are about 20 cities in Connecticut that are plaintiffs in a state action. There's many counties and cities that are in federal actions that are consolidated in Ohio at the present time. That has a fairly short window. I think it's supposed to go to trial in June of 2019 on 3 test cases as to the claims. This is being handled by Judge McCousher on, I think at the present time, there are about 20 cities in Connecticut that are parties in this.
And to address the public comment, I know you tried to, but the anticipated cost to the city on this?
Well, not in legal fees. The cost would be city time, I think, that Mr. Browning is speaking to, dealing with discovery issues or other issues that may come up.
Okay, thank you.
Is there further discussion? Yes, Alderman Philbrick?
So I want to be perfectly clear that it will not be any cost to the city. And when I say any cost to the city, I mean asking the police department for records, asking the fire department for records, asking human services. We're talking about cutting positions, and yet we're hypothetically signing on to a lawsuit that may require our limited staff to do initial work. And having said that, if and when this lawsuit is successful, who will determine the amount of money that is returned to the city of Norwich, and what line item will that money be deposited in?
I think we're counting chickens before they're hatched, but my thought is going to be that if there is a resolution by way of a settlement, it'll be spelled out in the settlement. If the case goes to trial and there's a verdict in favor of the multiple municipalities, then the amount is divided up basically, in all likelihood, in accordance with the cost that each city has been able to establish, perhaps in a pro rata division or whatever. The attorney's fees and costs will come out first. The attorney's fees are 22.5% of any recovery as after cost. In terms of a cost to the city, if there is discovery, which there probably will be, there will be effort on the part of the city to put records together. That's not something that can be avoided. To what extent that occurs is going to depend on what the court would allow by way of discovery. It's the city's burden to establish not only the merits of the legal claim that it makes, but also the damages that the city can demonstrate. And speculative damages are not going to be allowed by the court. We have to actually establish that there were costs. There'll be, in all likelihood, rubrics by which those are established. But that will require some work on the part of the city to put that record together.
So for my follow-up question, and to use your words, why would we enter into an agreement when we do not know what the parameters are?
Well, because as the case goes forward, the parameters are developed. If we don't enter the agreement, then at the end of the day, we're not a party to any resolution of the case, if that's the answer.
Is there further questions? Does anyone want to hear from one of the most affected departments? The deputy chief is here.
Thank you for your time. We at the police department do support this. Certainly, we concur with Mr. Driscoll and his assessment. We think it would be beneficial. We've approached every avenue as far as the opioid crisis that it's affected Norwich. We've done certainly our part in interdiction and enforcement, but also now we're working to education and intervention with collaborations with Human Services, with Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, even Backus Hospital. Any department that we can collaborate with, we're certainly, and if this is just one more tool in our toolbox to give us an effort to combat the opioid crisis, we certainly support this.
Anyone have questions? Thank you very much, Chief. Is there further concerns or questions on the resolution? If not, all those in favor? It's unanimous, opposed 6-0.
Number 15, relative to establishing village district guidelines to be referred to the Commission on City Plan.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderman DeLucia, second. Alderman Stacey Gould. Is there discussion?
This will need to be referred to the Commission on the
Yeah.
City Plan before you can debate it.
Right.
I believe that June 18th is the date that all three, the two ordinances in this
Correct.
resolution should come back.
For the record again, this would return to us from Commission on City Plan. Our goal is to receive it for public comment on the 18th of June. This is not final action tonight at all. This is a referral to the CCP, just for the record.
Refer it and postpone activities to the 18th.
For the record, this is to refer to Commission on City Plan and to postpone action until June 18th. Are those in agreement who made the motion? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Is there further discussion? Yes, Alderman Browning.
I would just want to ask one or two questions of the people who put this plan together, if that's possible. I believe they're in the
You
audience.
really can't ask anything about it now because it's not up.
because it's
the
not up.
motion
Not
now
public?
is refer and continue it.
On the 18th, please bring those questions
Okay.
when it's in front of us. Yeah.
So
Yes, Alderman DeLucia.
So it really kind of, I think that may have answered my question. This is currently a work in progress.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
For the record, the city planner requested that this resolution be forwarded to the Commission on City Plan at the same time the two ordinances that we will refer later to the Commission on City Plan, so that when they looked at these issues, they would have everything together one time. Yeah. Yes.
I just have one comment. When it does return to us, I would appreciate it if the proponents for this talk to the business owners affected, because that would be something which I would be very interested in their opinion on this, because it could affect how businesses architecturally were changed, expenses. It's a big change, and it looks like this includes the Norwich Town Mall, which I don't know how you make this look more architecturally historical, if I'm understanding the plan correctly.
For future discussion. Yes. All those in favor of the referral? Motion carries 6-0.
Number 16, relative to a resolution proposing goals and possible amendments to the operating and capital budgets.
Motion to bring it forward. Alderman Stacey Burnham, Stephanie
Stacey
Burnham.
Burnham it is.
Nice together. Alderman DeLucia?
Yes.
Okay. Is there discussion? Alderman DeLucia.
So first, my discussion starts with an apology, because you know that I'm not in favor of showing up on the night of a city council meeting and saying, hey, I've got this great idea. I like to flesh stuff out ahead of time, but quite frankly, you all know the magnitude of the budget, and I was still grinding on this at 4 o'clock this morning. So I beg your indulgence on this. All I am trying to do here is to put some ideas forward that we can have, or to spur our conversations and start to identify what we care about. Better way of saying that, what our priorities are, what our values are, and where we're going to find balance in the budget. Stephanie said earlier, and I agree with her wholeheartedly, that our budget is a reflection of our values. Public safety is crucial, and we are well protected, but the capital expenditures are too biased in this particular silo, I think, my personal opinion. Education is our moral obligation to the community, and we are falling short. We all see that. Right? Amenities bring an identity to the community and bonds our citizens to it, but what will cause people to choose to live here or to move here or choose to stay here if we do not start to provide the things that are going to be bonded to? Okay? As I said, I'm seeking to find a balance between these values. I also feel that we did not give clear goals to the city manager when we asked him last meeting to do the levels 1 through 5, and now I think we've taken at least a step in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Yes, Alderman Berman.
If we're delineating goals here, I would like to add to that, if I could amend your amendment, to add to it investigating the possibility and the return on investment of joining the state's health insurance program. Given that other towns have found savings, it may or may not work, but in terms of goals and at least looking for alternatives for savings, I would add that to this.
Are you offering that as an
I'm offering that as an amendment.
Second.
And I would add to my discussion that we have to start now so that we can be prepared for next year, so that we're not here next year. So we're not in this position next year. If we start outlining goals now, just like all of the public comments said, and we're creative about our solutions and looking into shared services within town and out of town, and looking at alternative methods for our highest expenses, such as health insurance and some of the things that Alderman DeLucia so well laid out here, I think it'll place us in a better position for next year.
Okay, is there further discussion? Yes, Alderman Gould.
So I have a question here. So,
This is on the amendment.
oh no, never mind. I'm not,
Just for the clarity, the amendment is to have us explore?
Yep, research and explore, just like some of these other goals, under the goals. Universal data collection methods, universal operations and budgeting protocols, data-informed decision-making and expenditures, reliable communication system, investigating the possibility and the return on investment of the state's health insurance program for next year.
For next year, or this budget? What?
Talking about, when you say next year, or the new fiscal year, which begins at the end of this fiscal year, which is not very far away? Clarity.
If I may?
Sorry.
Or it's you.
Well, it's her amendment.
Oh, yeah. Well, some of these, this is goals that will bleed over, like you said. The next fiscal year starts in, a month? 2 months? So we have to start laying the groundwork now. Some of these goals will bleed over into next year.
Is there further discussion? If not, and I have questions. I'd like to ask the sponsor, have you discussed this with the city manager and the comptroller? This is not something that I would think they would have already ignored. If you're aware, we're self-funded for our health here in the city of Norwich. Have you discussed this with the comptroller or the city manager?
The idea of...
Oh, yeah. I think we broached it, in passing, but in response to some of the public comment that came up tonight, I thought it was a good idea.
No, did you get an answer from them? Have they explored this issue in the past? Are you aware of it or not?
Let's discuss it. Have we explored this in the past?
Mr. City Manager?
It's been discussed. I guess it's how you define explore.
Yeah.
It's been questioned, and not pursued
Right,
at this point.
right, okay.
Was it not pursued because of additional costs?
Many reasons. It wasn't pursued because it has to be part of collective bargaining, first of all. So we would have to wait for contracts to come due. And because it's part of collective bargaining, there's a strategy involved with if you include this or not. As far as the plan itself, we haven't analyzed to see what the differences are in it. So, but the key item is probably the collective bargaining part of it. The analyzing the plan vis-a-vis our plan is rather straightforward in that sense. If I may,
Please.
can I add something?
Certainly.
Some of these items, and we haven't discussed them, I'm just concerned that they may be multi-year goals. I'm not sure if I could commit that every one of these items could be accomplished within the next 12 months or so. And I would be uncomfortable, the council going on the record with all these and then falling short of these. I'd like to be able to have some time to comment on them and get back to them, because some of these are pretty straightforward that we've discussed in our goal setting. Some of them are newer, and some of them are more specific type of goals. And I would even need to talk to department heads on some of these things, because they get into pretty technical areas. I'm looking at the police, deputy police chief, and some others. So I normally don't get involved with motions and all that, but I am concerned about this one tonight without further analysis to get back to the council on.
So,
It sounds like that's a discussion on the entire amendment, not the amendment she offered.
that's true.
Have you expanded?
No, I'm just talking about the goals at this point.
Okay, but
I'm
that's,
not commenting on the financial
but
one.
we're on the amendment dealing with health issues.
I'll
just-
remove the amendment for the sake of discussion for tonight. I move to remove it.
Oh, thank you. Is there a second agree? Who made the second?
Mr. Browning.
Mr. Browning, do you agree to withdraw the second?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Is there discussion on the resolution?
So, to address the city manager's question and concern, I do not put this forward as prescriptive, more as conversation starters, debate, investigation, more options for us to consider as we deliberate through the budget. That was my intent when I started putting this together, and hopefully I achieved that. You asked me earlier, and I answered that on the capital side. No, I didn't seek to find let's subtract this and add this and make the dollars, balance, because I didn't want to be so presumptuous to say, I have all the answers of all the things we're going to do with capital. What I wanted to do is say, here's the things that I find are important, and these are the things that I'd like to discuss, and I would hope that my colleagues, and I'm confident that my colleagues will bring their items as well. So this is intended, just as Corporation Council worded the heading, this is a proposal of possible amendments to the budget that we have adopted from you, or I should say accepted from you tonight.
Yes, Alderman Stacey Gould.
So are you just proposing that we discuss this and take this home and read it and think about it? Or are you proposing this as a resolution tonight to make these changes?
Again, my intention is for this to be, these are the changes that I would like to see, but I expect that they will be debated and that we would be discussing them.
This evening or at a future time?
At a future time.
Okay, so then, you're not making this a resolution to be voted on tonight. This is more like, take this home, these are my ideas, and let's talk about it.
Absolutely, yeah. So with the 5 exhibits that were presented to us tonight, I wanted this information as part of that deliberation process of the budget.
So instead of a resolution, do you want this to come to us as a communication?
Well, again,
Or how do we handle this?
Well,
not yet.
I hear what is being stated, but if you read what's in here, it says proposed budget amendments to level 1 proposal. We dispensed with the level 1, exhibit 1, but in here, you're reducing full-time police officers from 4 to 2. You're increasing a rec director to full-time equivalent. You're eliminating funding to NCDC of $100,000. Those aren't goals or objectives. Those are actual cuts in a budget. Again, as we spoke at the beginning, this was not something you brought in a timely manner or that was reviewed by the corporate counsel in order for context and legal language. You can only take it for what its face value is. You're looking to cut, I guess, 2 full-time police officers in this as well. And if we pass this resolution as offered, then we're eliminating 2 more cops. That's what your document says. It means you don't have any funding for NCDC, literally. Their current funding is $100,000. That means they're zeroed out. Well, they're the ones that administered the program that brought the grants for Panema Mills. They are working for the city on Uncas Leap. Are you proposing that those 2 projects stop? What are you doing? Well, that's what it says.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Mayor. This is so again, my intent was that this become a matter for discussion in terms of our budget.
They only get 100 now in the current year.
In terms of our budget deliberation.
That hasn't passed. My request would be that all of us that can, up to 3, because that's all it can be with corporate counsel, sit down and go through this again and bring it back next meeting, which is in 2 weeks, which is 2 weeks before we'll even look at the budget again. So you still have time, and in the meantime, the administration can look at these issues and sort them out. This is not just goals and objectives. These are actual cuts, as stated. And you're saying that was not your intent.
So I will say to you that, Mr. Mayor, that just trying to clarify, collect my thought.
Well, let me ask another question while you're getting there. Under Section 5, you say consolidate redundant operations, and then you start to list custodial and maintenance in Department of Public Works, building and grounds, and so forth. You're proposing further reductions there? What does this mean?
Well, again, that's under the goals section where we heard comment from the Public Works Director on this very topic, conveniently, that again, these are goals that I didn't feel that we were moving successfully toward or quickly enough toward. So I included them in my overall goals for what we're doing now, so that this was something that we would continue to work on, or that would continue to be worked on moving forward as part of this budget and enact systemic change for future budgets.
Okay, thank you.
As you said, in the second section, you're absolutely right. I'm talking about changing the way we're using the NPU payment, the undesignated fund balance. I am talking about adding and subtracting funding to certain programs, personnel. Yes, I am putting those ideas forward. Yes.
They're more than ideas if the language reads clearly. It says reduce proposed 4 full-time equivalent police officers, -1 to 2 full-time equivalent. That's not a goal, that's a statement of fact.
Yes, you're right, and again, that was, that references the level 1, which removed all 4. So essentially, I was looking to put 2 back.
For the sake of the meeting's length, would you consider a referral to the Budget and Finance Subcommittee of the City Council to look at this, and then they can report back?
And table this motion in the meantime?
No, it's not a table. It's a referral to that subcommittee of the council that is going to be handling budget and finance committees. You don't have to answer. Alderwoman Philbrick.
Would Alderman DeLucia, would you be amenable to withdrawing this resolution, using this document as a informational piece to let the council look it over? I would judge that you spent a lot of time and effort on this, but personally, I don't think that this resolution is your take on where, so I would ask you to withdraw the motion, or to withdraw the resolution, let the council as a whole read it through, and then possibly forward it to the Budget and Finance Committee, which is a new committee within the city, and go from there.
Thank you. Is there further comment? There's no further comment. I appreciate all the hard work. I agree with many of the goals and objectives that are listed here, but this is a combination of actual cuts and reductions and changes to the capital plan, reductions in departments. You called one, it's an add back. That's not what I'm reading. You're actually adding another position to the city clerk's office we haven't even discussed. I mean, that's not how it's done here. So I will be opposing this because this is not the format. As you said, it came at the last minute. There's been literally no opportunity for public comment on this at all. It really represents a lot of hard work, but it also represents a mess. And I don't even know how our corporate council and our administrators deal with all of this.
Mr. Mayor?
Because we've already acted on the budget, by the way. That Resolution 7 was the final vote for our action. That budget is not in front of us again unless you open that up and amend it with this. You have budget changes here. Yes, Alderman Brennan.
I would just like to say that I don't think the intention was to, this was supposed to be advisory, I think, right? Advisory, where our staff could take it into account as we readjust. It was at the advice of Corporation Counsel that we add it at the end.
Yes.
As so chastising us for a procedure, I don't think
That is not my intent.
Okay.
I'm very concerned about the impacts of this, some of which I'm not prepared to respond to what they mean either, because some are recommendations, some are goals, some are actual changes to the budget document, which actually isn't in front of us anymore. It's not. We voted on the Resolution 7. We adopted the city manager's budget as amended. That's not on the table now, but this resolution speaks to that budget.
So then this resolution should have come before that, at the advice of...
I
or
followed
however
the same
procedure
advice. I wanted to give the alderman the opportunity to present the resolution. I wanted him to have that opportunity. I was given this at the same time everyone else was, just as the meeting started. Alderman DeLucia, your hand was up.
I'm sorry?
You had your hand up.
Oh, yes. Okay, so again, my apology for not clearly understanding procedure. I will say to you that again, to clarify, the thought that I walked into this chamber with was that this would be added to, or this would be an amendment to one of the exhibits tonight. I did not expect to have to put it on there as a resolution in its own right. And so I believe that that's how we got going down this slippery slope. I do admit I'm a bit embarrassed, but I'll get over that. What I would like to do at this point, if I am permitted, Mr. Mayor, is to withdraw the resolution and refer it to the Budget and Finance Committee for discussion, so to see how this folds into the balance of our budget deliberation.
I would accept that as an amendment from the author of this Resolution 16 to keep it simple, refer it to the Budget and Finance Committee of the City Council.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Is there further discussion on the recommendation to refer? Seeing none, all those in favor of referring Resolution 16, it's unanimous. Vote is 6-0. Business ordinances.
New business ordinance 1, an ordinance amending section 7-132.2, 7-131.3, and 7-131.4C of Article 6 of the Code of Ordinances regarding the size, use, and replenishment of the general fund unrestricted fund balance.
I entertain a motion to schedule this for a public hearing to waive the full text and reading. Public hearing to be held on May 21st. And, I'm sorry? And, okay.
Oh, no, sorry.
Not this one. It's the next two. So, it's a motion to schedule public hearing on May 21st. Alderman Stacey Gould. It also waives the full reading of the text. Is there a second? Alderman Philbrick. Pardon? Yeah, and the second reading will be on the 21st following the public hearing. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Vote is 6-0.
Number 2, an ordinance amending the zoning regulations of the City of Norwich contained in the comprehensive plan by adding regulations for a village district overlay as Section 3.10 of the zoning regulations.
A motion to schedule the public hearing. It will be on the 6/18, June 18th. This motion is to refer this to the Commission on the City Plan for their review. Alderman Stacey Gould, second. Alderman Burnham. Is there discussion? For the record, this waives the full text and reading tonight, schedules the second read on when we hold a public hearing in June on the 18th, following the decision of the Commission on the City Plan. All those in favor? Unanimous, 6-0.
An ordinance amending the zoning map of the City of Norwich, accompanying the zoning ordinance of the City of Norwich by defining the limits of the Norwich Town Village District.
A motion to, this will be to schedule the public hearing, which will be held again on June 18th. It is a referral to the Commission on the City Plan. Tonight, we are waiving the full text and read of the ordinance, and we will schedule the second reading of the text and ordinance following the, on the 18th of June. Alderman Stacey Gould, is there a second? Alderman Burnham. All those in favor? Unanimous, 6-0. Matter is referred.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Alderman Browning. All those in favor of adjournment? We are adjourned.